The emptiness of space has always fascinated me. Ever since I was a child, I dreamed of exploring its mysteries, of touching the stars with my own hands. But nothing could have prepared me for what I found on the moon on that fateful mission in 1989. My name is David Reynolds, and this is the story of how I discovered that we were never alone. The Artemis mission was supposed to be the pinnacle of my career as an astronaut. Years of training, personal sacrifice, and unwavering dedication have brought me here, captain of one of the most ambitious lunar expeditions ever undertaken. Our mission was simple in theory, but monumental in practice, to lay the foundations for the first permanent colony on the moon. As our ship, the Selene, approached Earth's natural satellite, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The silvery sheen of the lunar surface grew in our vision, promising secrets and challenges that we were eager to face. Mission Control. This is Selene. Initiating lunar approach procedures, I announced, my voice steady, hiding the whirlwind of emotions churning inside me. Roger that, Selene. You are cleared for landing. Good luck, Captain Reynolds, came the reply over the radio, echoing through the cockpit. Next to me, Sofia Alvarez, our brilliant systems engineer, was carefully monitoring the control panels. Her dark eyes reflected the flashing lights of the instruments, focused and alert. All systems normal, Captain, she reported, a slight accent tinging her words. We're ready to begin our descent. I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. 6 lives depended on my decisions in the next few moments. 6 dreamers who had trusted me to lead this historic mission. As we approached the lunar surface, a strange sensation began to take hold of me. It was as if something was watching us, evaluating us. I shook my head, pushing such thoughts away. It was just the stress of the mission manifesting itself, I told myself. That's when everything changed. A sudden tremor shook the ship, causing the alarms to go off in a deafening cacophony. Red lights flashed frantically, indicating faults in multiple systems. What's happening? I shouted, struggling to keep control of the ship. Sophia was typing furiously at her console, her face a mask of concentration and worry. Captain, we're losing power. Something's interfering with our systems. I tried to compensate, but it was as if the Selene had taken on a life of its own. Our engines roared, fighting against an invisible force that was pulling us down. Mayday, mayday, I shouted into the radio. Mission Control, we're losing control. I repeat, we are losing. My voice was cut off as a bright bluish light enveloped our ship. For a moment, everything went silent. Time seemed to stop, and then, with a violent jolt, we were dragged down towards the lunar surface. As we struggled to stay conscious against the overwhelming G-forces, I saw something that defied all logic and reason. The surface of the moon opened up before us, revealing an abyss of pulsating light. There was no time to process what was happening. In an instant, we were plunging into the bowels of the moon, our fate uncertain and our reality shattered. The impact, when it finally came, was surprisingly soft. Selene landed with a muffled thud, and then silence. A silence so deep and complete that it seemed to weigh us down like a blanket. Status report, I managed to say, my voice hoarse and shaky. One by one, my team responded. Miraculously, everyone was alive and relatively unharmed, but the relief was short-lived when we finally plucked up the courage to look through the ship's hatches. What we saw defied all comprehension. We were not on the desolate, gray surface we had expected. Instead, we found ourselves in a vast cavern, illuminated by bioluminescent crystals that pulsed with an ethereal light. And we weren't alone. Figures moved in the shadows, their forms at once familiar and alien. They were tall, slender, with skin that seemed to reflect the light of the crystals. Their eyes, large and luminous, watched us with a mixture of curiosity and caution. One of them approached our ship. His bearing was majestic, almost regal. When he spoke, his voice resonated not just in our ears, but in our minds. "Welcome, children of Earth," said the creature, its eyes fixed on me. "I am Lyra, guardian of this sanctuary. You have just entered a world that your species never even dreamed existed." At that moment, I realized that our mission had changed irrevocably. We were no longer explorers in search of scientific knowledge. We were witnesses to an ancient secret, caught between two worlds, with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. And so, in the heart of the moon, our true journey was about to begin. The silence that followed Lyra's words was almost tangible, heavy with the weight of 1,000 unasked questions. My mind was spinning, trying to process the surreal reality before us. Aliens. On the moon. An entire civilization hidden beneath the surface we thought we knew so well. How is it possible? I finally managed to stammer, my eyes fixed on Lyra's ethereal figure. Her gaze, deep and ancient, seemed to penetrate my soul. "Captain Reynolds," she replied, her voice echoing not only in the air, but in our minds. "There is much more to this universe than your kind can comprehend. We've been here for millennia, guarding a secret that could change the course of Earth's history." I felt a shiver run down my spine. Next to me, Sophia stepped forward, her scientific curiosity momentarily overcoming her shock. "What kind of secret?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Lyra made an elegant gesture with her elongated hand, and suddenly the air around us was filled with glowing holograms. Images of complex crystalline structures, energy diagrams and symbols that defied our comprehension danced before our astonished eyes. "A source of energy," Lyra explained, her eyes glowing with an inner light. "Clean, limitless, capable of powering entire civilizations for eons. It's hidden in the depths of the moon, protected by us for longer than your species has existed." My heart raced. The implications were astronomical. An energy source like this could solve the energy crisis on Earth, put an end to wars over resources, revolutionize space exploration. "Why reveal this to us now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's face contorted into an expression I couldn't decipher. Sadness, concern. "Because time is running out, Captain. For us, and for you." Before I could question further, a tremor shook the cave. Crystals tinkled, and the sound of shifting stones echoed off the walls. Instinctively, I stood in front of my team, as if I could protect them from some unseen threat. "What was that?" I shouted, my gaze alternating between Lyra and the shadows that seemed to be moving around the edges of the cave. "The reason we need you," Lyra replied, her voice laden with urgency. "Come on, there's a lot to show and not much time." I hesitated for a moment, looking at my team. Their faces reflected my own confusion and apprehension, but I also saw determination in their eyes. We came to the moon to make history, to expand humanity's horizons. Now it seemed we were about to do much more than that. "Let's go," I decided, my voice steady despite the swirl of emotions in my chest. We followed Lyra through crystalline tunnels that seemed to stretch endlessly into the bowels of the moon. At every step, unimaginable wonders revealed themselves. We saw underground lakes of a silvery liquid that defied gravity, floating in glittering globules in the air. We passed crystal gardens where alien plants grew, their shimmering leaves absorbing the light of the surrounding crystals. But it was when we reached what Lyra called the heart that I really understood the magnitude of what we were witnessing. It was a vast chamber, larger than any structure I've ever seen on Earth. In the center, pulsating with blue and white energy, was a crystalline structure the size of a skyscraper. Waves of energy radiated from it at regular intervals, making the air vibrate with pure power. "This," Lyra said, her voice laden with reverence, "is the energy source we protect, the legacy of a civilization even older than ours." I was stunned, unable to form words. Sophia, ever the scientist, was already scanning everything with her instruments, her eyes wide with amazement. "The energy, it's incredible," she murmured. "I've never seen anything like it. It could power the Earth for millennia," Lyra added, "but it could also destroy it in seconds if misused." A shiver ran down my spine at those words. "Is that why you've kept it hidden?" Lyra nodded gravely. "We have observed your kind for a long time, Captain Reynolds. We've seen your capacity for great deeds and terrible destruction. We couldn't risk this power falling into the wrong hands. Then why show it to us now? I asked, the question that had been hammering at the back of my mind all along. Lyra's face contorted into an expression of pain. Because we have no choice. The energy is becoming unstable. If left unchecked, it will not only destroy the moon, but cause cataclysms on Earth that your species won't survive. The weight of this revelation fell on me like a ton of bricks. Suddenly, our mission seemed insignificant compared to what was at stake. What can we do? I asked, my voice shaky but determined. Lyra stretched out her hand towards me, her eyes shining with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Join us, Captain Reynolds. Help us save both our worlds. At that moment, I knew I was facing the most important decision of my life. A choice that would not only affect my team or my mission, but the fate of all humanity. With a heavy but resolute heart, I reached out to find Lyra's hand. Tell us everything, she said. We'll do whatever it takes. And so, in the depths of the moon, an unlikely alliance was formed. A partnership between two species, united by the desire to survive and the hope for a better future. Little did we know that the real challenges were yet to come. The hours that followed our discovery passed like a feverish blur. Lyra and her companions, the Selenites as we came to call them, guided us through a labyrinth of crystalline chambers and corridors, each more impressive than the last. The underground lunar city was a marvel of alien engineering and beauty, defying everything we thought we knew about architecture and physics. As we walked, Lyra told us about the history of her people, her melodious voice echoing off the crystal walls. Millennia ago, our civilization flourished on the surface of a distant planet, she explained. But when our sun began to die, we were forced to look for a new home. And you chose the moon, I murmured, still amazed at the magnitude of it all. Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with an ancient sadness. It was the perfect place, close enough to the Earth to observe it, far enough away to remain hidden, and most importantly, it housed the energy source that would allow us to survive. Sophia, who was walking beside me, couldn't contain her scientific curiosity. But how did you manage to build all this without being detected? Our satellites, our telescopes. An enigmatic smile crossed Lyra's face. We have technologies you haven't even dreamed of, Sophia. Advanced camouflage, gravitational manipulation. To your instruments, the moon looks exactly as it should. As we absorbed these revelations, we arrived in a large circular room. In the center, a holographic table pulsed with light, displaying a complex three-dimensional model that I recognized as the power source. This is our control center, Lyra announced. From here, we monitor and regulate the energy of the heart. I approached the table, fascinated by the energy patterns that danced across the hologram. It was then that I noticed something disturbing. Dark spots slowly spreading across the model, like an infection. What are those dark areas? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. Lyra's face contorted into an expression of concern. They're the instabilities I mentioned. They're spreading faster than we anticipated. Before she could ask any more questions, the doors to the room opened violently. A group of Selenites entered, led by an imposing figure whose eyes glowed with barely contained fury. Lyra! The leader of the group roared, his voice reverberating in the room. What does that mean? Have you brought humans into our sanctuary? Lyra placed herself between us and the newcomer, her posture defiant. Zarek, you know we had no choice. The situation is critical. Zarek, the furious Selenite, cast a contemptuous glance in our direction. And you think these primitives can help us? They've barely left their own planet. I felt my fists clench, indignation rising in my chest. But before I could reply, Sophia stepped forward. With all due respect, she said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. Maybe that's exactly what you need. A new look, a different perspective. Zarek laughed, a cold, humorless sound. You don't even understand the magnitude of what's at stake here. Then explain it to us, I retorted, finding my voice. We're here to help, whether you like it or not. The air in the room became thick with tension. For a moment, I thought Zarek was going to attack, but then another Selenite approached him, whispering something in his ear. Zarek's face contorted into a grimace. but he backed away. "Very well," he hissed. "But be warned, humans, one false step, and I'll have you thrown out of here myself by the lunar atmosphere." With that, he and his group left the room, leaving a heavy silence behind. Lyra sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I apologize for Zarek's behavior. Not everyone among us is enthusiastic about the idea of collaboration." I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation. "I understand the mistrust, but if we want to resolve this, we need to work together." "I agree," Lyra said, turning to the holographic table. "And time is running out. Come on, let me show you what we've discovered so far." Over the next few hours, we plunged into a sea of information. Complex diagrams, equations that defied our understanding of physics, theories that seemed more like magic than science. Sophia was in her element, her eyes shining as she absorbed every detail. But the more we learned, the clearer it became that the situation was even more serious than we had imagined. The instability in the heart wasn't just an engineering problem, it was a cosmic time bomb. "If we can't stabilize the core in the next few days," Lyra explained, her voice heavy with worry, "the chain reaction will be catastrophic. The moon will shatter, and the effects on Earth will be apocalyptic." A heavy silence fell over us. The magnitude of what we were facing was almost incomprehensible. It wasn't just about saving a hidden alien civilization or making a revolutionary scientific discovery. It was about the survival of all humanity. "What can we do?" I asked, my voice steady despite the fear that threatened to consume me. Lyra looked at us, one by one, her alien eyes shining with a mixture of hope and determination. "We need to pool our knowledge, our technologies. Only then will we stand a chance." I looked at my team. I saw fear in their eyes, but I also saw courage, determination. We were astronauts, explorers. Facing the unknown was our job. "We're in," I said, my voice echoing in the room. "Tell us where to start." And so, in the depths of the moon, an unlikely alliance began to take shape. Humans and Selenites, united against a threat that could end both our worlds. But as we prepared for the challenge ahead, I couldn't help but feel that Zarek's eyes were watching us from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The clock was ticking, and the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. Time seemed to flow differently in the depths of the moon. Days passed in a blur of frantic discoveries and heated debates. My team and I worked tirelessly alongside the Selenites, our minds united in a desperate effort to save not just one, but two worlds. Sophia had become the crucial link between our two species. Her brilliant mind absorbed alien knowledge with impressive speed, translating complex concepts for the rest of us. Watching her work side by side with the Selenite scientists was like witnessing the birth of a new era of interstellar collaboration. One afternoon, or was it evening? The concept of time was losing its meaning in that subterranean world. I was walking through the crystalline corridors, my mind heavy with worries. That's when I heard excited voices coming from a nearby chamber. "We can't trust them!" Zarek's voice, laden with venom, echoed off the walls. "They'll destroy everything we've built." Silently, I approached the entrance to the chamber, keeping to the shadows. "Zarek, you're blinded by fear." Lyra's voice was firm but tired. "Humans are our only hope of survival." "Survival?" Zarek spat the word as if it were an insult. "At what cost? Revealing our secrets, our technology? What if they decide to use the heart as a weapon?" A shiver ran down my spine. The idea of using that energy source as a weapon was terrifying, the power to destroy worlds. "They're not like the ancients," Lyra argued. "We should give them a chance." Ancients. My curiosity was piqued. Who were these ancients that Lyra was talking about? Zarek let out a bitter laugh. "Aren't they? Look at their history. Lyra, wars, destruction, greed. They're just like the ancients, and they'll make the same mistakes." Before I could hear any more, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned, startled, to find the luminous eyes of a young Selenite, Kyle, if I remembered correctly. "Captain Reynolds," he whispered, his melodious voice laden with urgency. "Come with me. There's something you need to see." I hesitated, casting one last glance at the chamber where Lyra and Zarek were continuing their heated debate. But the look on Kyle's face convinced me. Silently, I followed him through the labyrinthine corridors. Kyle guided me to an area of the underground city that I hadn't yet explored. The walls here seemed older, the crystals less shiny. Finally, we reached a circular chamber, its walls covered in alien symbols and glyphs. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. Kyle turned to me, his eyes shining with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "This is the Hall of Memories. Here, we keep the history of our people and the mistakes of the past." With a gentle gesture, Kyle activated something on the wall. Suddenly, the air around us was filled with three-dimensional holograms. Images of an alien world, beautiful and strange, danced before my eyes. "This was our homeworld," Kyle explained, his voice charged with emotion. "A paradise of knowledge and harmony." The images changed, showing great cities of crystal and metal, technologies that defied my comprehension. "Our ancestors discovered the secret of the heart energy," Kale continued. "In the beginning, it was a blessing. Unlimited energy, free from pollution. It seemed like the pinnacle of our civilization, but then the images became bleak. I saw war machines powered by the energy of the heart, entire cities being vaporized in explosions of blue light. Power has corrupted many," Kyle said, his voice trembling. "Factions sprang up, each wanting to control the heart. The war that followed almost destroyed our species." I watched in horror as the beautiful alien world turned into a barren wasteland, its moons shattered. "The few survivors fled," Kyle concluded. "They found refuge here, on Earth's moon, vowing never again to allow the power of the heart to be misused." The images faded, leaving us in the dimness of the chamber. My mind whirled with the implications of what I had seen. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Kale turned to me, his eyes piercing. "Because you need to understand what's at stake, Captain. Zarek's fear is not unfounded. The power of the heart has destroyed a world before." I swallowed, the weight of responsibility falling on my shoulders like a ton of moon rocks. "But I also need you to understand this," Kale continued, his voice gaining strength. "Not all of us share Zarek's fear. Many of us, especially the younger ones, believe that the time has come to break the cycle of isolation, to trust again." He extended his alien hand towards me. "We are betting our future on you, Captain Reynolds. Please don't let us down." With a heavy but determined heart, I shook Kyle's hand. "I will do everything in my power to ensure that history does not repeat itself." As we left the Hall of Memories, my mind was buzzing. The knowledge I had just acquired was both a burden and a responsibility. I knew that the decisions we would make over the next few days would not only affect the fate of the Earth and the Moon, but could be the catalyst for a new era of interstellar cooperation or a repeat of a cosmic tragedy. The road ahead was uncertain and dangerous, but I knew one thing for sure: we couldn't fail. The cost would be too high. The knowledge that Kale shared with me weighed on my conscience like a cosmic anchor. In the days that followed, every decision, every calculation, every proposed theory carried the weight of two worlds and the shadow of a third, long lost to greed and unchecked power. Our team worked tirelessly. Sophia, her eyes deep with exhaustion but bright with determination, led the efforts to decipher the heart's secrets. Watching her work side by side with the Selenite scientists was like witnessing the merging of two rivers of knowledge, converging into an ocean of possibilities. But time was our implacable enemy. The dark spots on the heart's hologram were growing by the hour, like a cosmic cancer devouring the Selenites' life source, and by extension, the future of the Earth. It was during one of these endless work sessions that the inevitable finally happened. Alarms echoed through the underground city, their shrill howl reverberating off the crystal walls. The ground shook beneath our feet, and a wave of blue energy pulsed through the structures, making the crystals sing in an alien cacophony. "What's happening?" I shouted, trying to stay on my feet as another wave of tremors shook the chamber. Lyra, her face a mask of terror and determination, ran to the central console. "It's the heart," she shouted over the chaos. "The instability has reached a critical point." We ran into the main chamber, where the immense heart crystal was pulsing with furious energy. Arcs of blue electricity danced across its surface, and the air around it seemed to distort, as if reality itself was being bent and twisted. "We need to contain it," Sophia shouted, her fingers flying over the alien controls with a familiarity born of days of frantic study. Zelenites ran to and fro, shouting orders in their melodious tongue. I saw the fear in their eyes, the same fear I felt eating away at my insides. This wasn't just the end of their civilization we were witnessing, but potentially the end of everything we knew. Suddenly, Zarek burst into the chamber, his eyes sparking with a mixture of fury and panic. "Look what you've done!" he roared, pointing an accusing finger in our direction. "Your interference caused this." "Not now, Zarek," Lyra retorted, her voice cutting. "Either help or get out of the way." But Zarek wasn't willing to back down. With one swift movement, he pulled a device from his suit, something that vaguely resembled a gun. "Enough," he shouted. "I'm going to end this once and for all." Everything seemed to slow down. I saw Zarek's finger move towards the trigger, Lyra's eyes widen in horrified comprehension. Sophia shout a warning. Without thinking, I launched myself towards Zarek. I collided with him the moment the gun went off. A bolt of blue energy sliced through the air, missing the heart by centimeters and hitting one of the support structures. The effect was catastrophic. The structure hit disintegrated in an explosion of light, and a shockwave swept through the chamber. I was thrown backwards, my head colliding painfully with the crystalline floor. Through the haze of pain and confusion, I saw chaos unfold. Pieces of the ceiling began to collapse, threatening to crush us all. The heart pulsed faster and faster, its light now almost blinding. "We need to evacuate," I heard someone shout. Hands grabbed me, pulling me up. It was Kyle, his face contorted with worry. "Captain Reynolds," he shouted over the roar of the disaster. "We've got to get out of here." But my eyes were fixed on Sophia and Lyra. They were still at the controls, working frantically. "No!" I shouted back. "We can't abandon them." With a superhuman effort, I freed myself from Kyle's grip and staggered towards the center console. Every step was agony, but the thought of leaving my team behind was unbearable. "Sophia," I called, my voice hoarse, "we have to go." She looked at me, her eyes full of fierce determination. "Almost there, Captain. A few more seconds." Time seemed to drag on. Selenites were running for the exits, panic taking over. I saw Zarek being dragged away by some of his followers, his face a mask of shock and regret. Finally, with one last frantic command, Sophia pushed away from the controls. "Ready?" she shouted. "We've started the emergency containment protocol. It should buy us some time." I didn't wait for any more explanations. I grabbed Sophia with one arm and Lyra with the other, and we ran towards the nearest exit. Kyle guided us through the collapsing corridors, dodging falling debris and avoiding cracks that opened up in the floor. We reached an evacuation chamber, just as another wave of energy swept through the city. The doors closed behind us with a metallic bang, and I felt the pressurization change. "Where are we going?" I asked, panting. Lyra, her voice shaky but determined, replied, "To the surface. It's our only chance now." As the evacuation chamber took us towards the lunar surface, I couldn't help thinking about what we had left behind. The Selenite city, home to an ancient civilization, was crumbling. The heart, the source of life and power, was on the verge of collapse. And what about us? We were refugees now, fleeing a disaster that threatened not just the moon, but the entire solar system. When we finally emerged onto the desolate surface of the moon, the sky above us was painted in the surreal colors of Earth, so close and yet impossibly far away. I looked at the tired, frightened faces around me, humans and Selenites united by despair and hope. "What now?" Sophia asked, her voice almost a whisper. I swallowed, feeling the weight of countless lives on my shoulders. "Now," I said, my voice steady despite the fear that threatened to consume me. We fight. For our future, for the Earth, for the moon, for everything. The ground beneath our feet shook, a grim reminder of the coming cataclysm. Our battle was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun, and the fate of two worlds hung in the balance. The lunar surface, once a symbol of conquest and exploration, had now become our last refuge. The grey soil trembled beneath our feet, a constant reminder of the cataclysm unfolding in the depths. The sky above us, normally a black blanket dotted with stars, pulsed with waves of bluish energy, the heart in its final agony. Our motley crew of humans and Selenites huddled around the few pieces of equipment we had managed to salvage. Sophia, tireless even in the face of the apocalypse, was working furiously at a makeshift console. "The containment protocol is failing," she announced, her voice tense. "We have less than an hour before the heart completely collapses." Lyra, her normally serene face now marked by fear and determination, approached. "If that happens, the resulting explosion will not only destroy the moon, but cause unimaginable cataclysms on Earth." The weight of that reality fell on us all like a cosmic shroud. Billions of lives, two entire civilizations, hung in the balance. It was Kale who broke the heavy silence. "We still have a chance," he said, his eyes shining with fierce hope. "The ring of containment," Lyra gasped, her eyes widening in understanding. "But that's just a theory. It's never been tested." "What are you talking about?" I asked, frustration and despair tinging my voice. Kyle turned to me, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. "The containment ring is a theoretical device, designed by our ancestors as a last resort. The idea is to create a force field around the unstable core, containing the explosion and redirecting the energy." Sophia, who had come closer to listen, frowned. "Redirecting it where?" "Into space," Lyra replied softly. "But the process is incredibly dangerous. It requires someone to be at the epicenter to activate and calibrate the device manually." The silence that followed was deafening. The implication was clear. Whoever carried out this task would probably not survive. Before anyone could volunteer, an unexpected voice cut through the air. "I'll do it." We all turned to see Zarek emerging from the shadows of a nearby rock. His normally arrogant face was marked by shame and determination. "Zarek," Lyra began, but he interrupted her with a gesture. "No, Lyra. This is my fault. My fear, my mistrust, almost doomed us all. Let me fix it." I looked into the eyes of the Selenite who, until a few hours ago, was our sworn enemy. I saw in them an unwavering resolution, a desire for redemption. "Do you understand that there may be no turning back?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Zarek nodded solemnly. "It's a small price to pay for the salvation of two worlds." Time was short. With an efficiency born of desperation, our makeshift team set to work. Sophia and the Selenite scientists worked frantically to calibrate the containment ring, while the rest of us prepared for the descent back into the lunar depths. The way back to the heart chamber was a nightmare of collapsing tunnels and shattered crystals. Every step was a struggle against time and against the moon itself, which seemed determined to stop us. When we finally reached the main chamber, the sight that greeted us was one of pure cosmic chaos. The heart, once a majestic structure of light and energy, was now a raging storm of uncontrolled power. Arcs of blue electricity whipped through the air, and reality itself seemed to distort around the pulsating core. Zarek, equipped with the ring of containment, turned to us one last time. His eyes met mine, and in that moment, all the barriers between our species seemed to melt away. "Take care of them," he said simply. I nodded, unable to find the right words for the moment. With firm steps, Zarek advanced towards the chaos. We watched him, hearts in our throats, as he fought against the waves of energy, getting closer and closer to the unstable core. At the last moment, he turned around, a serene smile on his face. For the moon, for the earth, for the future. And then, with one fluid movement, he activated the ring of containment. What followed defied all comprehension. An explosion of blinding light flooded the chamber, forcing us to shield our eyes. The roar of energy being contained and redirected was deafening, making the very fabric of reality tremble. For a terrible moment, I thought all was lost, that Zarek's sacrifice had been in vain, but then slowly the chaos began to subside. The pulsating light of the heart, previously furiously unstable, began to stabilize. The tremors that shook the moon gradually calmed down until they ceased completely. When we finally dared to open our eyes, the scene before us was one of sublime transformation. The heart, although still powerful, pulsed with a serene and controlled light. Where there had once been chaos, cosmic harmony now reigned. Zarek had disappeared, consumed by the process. But his sacrifice had not been in vain. He had saved not only the moon and Earth, but possibly the entire galaxy from an unimaginable catastrophe. In the days that followed, as we worked to rebuild and stabilize the Selenite city, the magnitude of what we had experienced and achieved began to settle in. Humans and Selenites, once separated by mistrust and fear, now worked side by side, united by an experience that transcended worlds. On our last night on the moon, before we began the journey back to Earth, Lyra called me for one last look at the renewed heart. "What happened here," she said softly, "changed everything. Not just for us, but for the future of both our species." I nodded, feeling the weight and hope of those words. "A new beginning," I murmured. "More than that," Lyra replied, a smile lighting up her alien face. "A rebirth, for the moon, for the Earth, for all of us." As we watched the soft pulsing of the heart, I felt a deep certainty take root in me. Our journey wasn't ending, it was just beginning. And the future, although uncertain, shone with infinite possibilities. Outside, beyond the crystal walls of the Selenite city, the surface of the moon awaited. And beyond it, the Earth, our blue and green home, now no longer an isolated world, but part of a larger cosmic community. The universe, vast and mysterious, was calling us. And this time, we wouldn't go as lone explorers, but as united guardians of a shared legacy. The legacy of the Guardians of the Moon.